Hey you, and welcome. In this video, we will continue building our contact app and add more functionality to it. So let's dive right into it. In the previous video, we had rendered our contact based on ID in the route. So currently I'm on contacts 1. If I go to contact 2, I can see the route changes and shows me the correct contact that I'm talking about. Now, you can't expect the user to know to change the URL address and figure out your URL. So it would be best that when we click on the contact in the drawer, that it takes us to that route. So let's start by making these buttons functional. So there are a few ways to navigate to the route. One way, I'll go back to Firefox and go to the documentation of React Router DOM. One way would be to use the link JSX element that React Router DOM gives us, and we can wrap link, I believe right here, we can wrap anything inside link and it will just create a hyperlink for us. That's one way to do it. Or if you want to work with a button component, which is custom and on click event will trigger, there will be some business logic and then navigation may happen. Then you may want to work with a hook instead. So I think that's called use navigate. There we go. Use navigate, and then it will give us a navigate function, and we can use navigate function to provide it an absolute path based on the route that we're trying to go to. I believe that's the case we want to work with because we're working with a button. All right, so let's go back to our VS Code and let's see, where is the component for this? We have it inside the root component, I believe. Yes, and then we're rendering out link items. Link items is mapped through contact array that we have on the contact context. So let's see, in the nav item on click event, on click like so, we'll say handle click, and we'll bring that up here, start a handle click function, arrow function, and we will use navigate in here. Now, of course, auto import will not work here because remember, it's the use navigate. That is the hook that we were supposed to use here. So I'll just import that auto import right here and navigate. It's a default export, so you don't have to destructure it out. And now we can just use navigate, and it's giving us trouble because we need to have an argument, which is a string, and we have to provide it the route. In this case, this is the root route. That means it'll go to the home page, but I wanted to go to contacts, and I need to provide it what contact the person clicked on. So on click would not just be a simple method. So handle click can become a little bit more smart about how we do things. So let me show you a pattern. This may be a little new, but bear with me. Notice I'm going to add another curly brace, and in the beginning, I will ask for argument. In this case, it will be contact ID string. So what's happening here? Well, there's two functions. First function asks for a contact ID, and it returns you a function that can be called later on. And that function is the one that is doing the navigation. This is something called currying functions in JavaScript, and that's a common practice. So that's what I'm doing here. The first function will be called, and then it will return another function. So let's do that. Under handle click, I will call that function and provide it link dot ID, or does it have ID? It doesn't have ID. Okay, I have to provide ID as one of the props. So ID contact.id, like so. This will get a little cumbersome. Let's just change the whole thing to contact. That would be much easier. So for every contact, you just get the whole contacts array, and we don't have to do link items. We can just loop through contact array. So let's just do that. I will take away line 63 to 66. All right, and then instead of looping through link items, I will loop through contacts instead, and each thing will be a contact type. Change the variable names, and here as well, contact.id should be returned, and it's giving me an error, TypeScript error. Why? Oh, because it's a number, and I'm expecting a string. Yes, I typed it wrong. So up here, where's handle click? Right here. Contact ID is supposed to be a number. Now that should stop complaining. Perfect. Now that I have access to contact ID in my nested function, I can just do string interpolation and pass like so. So I can navigate to contacts with the contact ID, and if you click on it, it will navigate to that. Right, let's save that. Let's see if it works. One more thing I do have to do, I remember, yeah, I think it does work, but the reason why it's not showing is because I'm not hiding the drawer after I've clicked on it. So let's hide the drawer as well. And where's our drawer is open function coming from? Let me see. On close. Okay, great. So we can just call on close, and that's supposed to work. So after navigation, or before navigation, on close should be called. Save. All right, let's see if that works. Sally, John, perfect. It's working beautifully. So that's how our navigation can work based on clicking on the contact. Next thing, I want to create another route that is called the contacts/new route when you want to add a new contact. And I want to put a button up top in the sidebar. So when you click on the new button, it should take you to that route and you can add a new contact. I'll head over to root TSX, and where we have the close button, I had put a empty text option. Instead of empty text option, I want to put a button up here, which will be coming from Chakra as well. So button, and this will be called new. And I will auto import that from Chakra UI and see how it renders. It's looking good. And then on click event for this one should take me to contacts new, which route doesn't exist, but that's okay. I'll create that later. So on click, handle new contact, something like that. Let's call it something other than handle click because we already have one called handle click. And I'll do pretty much the same thing here, except for query function. Of course, it will be a arrow function like so. And then I'll copy over the navigate function, and instead of contacts contact ID, it will just be hard-coded contact new, and I don't need string interpolation, so I'll just single quote it. I do need to close the drawer when that happens, so I'll save that, and that should create my route for it. All right, perfect. So if I click on new, it takes me to new. Of course, the contact information is blank because it is trying to render the contact card. Instead of rendering the contact card, I wanted to go to a new route altogether. So let's do that. I'll go over to index.tsx where we have our route configuration. I'll copy paste the code. Let's put it above. It doesn't really matter above or under. I just, for readability purposes, I always feel like the static routes should be above and then dynamic routes under. That way I know static routes come first. So contacts new, and in this case, contact details should not be the route. Instead, it should be a whole new component, which we're going to create. So let's head over to File Explorer. Under Components, I will create a new file, call it contact form.tsx. All right, import React from React, hide the File Explorer, export const, and I will call this contact form, arrow function. Oops, not like that, curly's instead, and I will TypeScript it, so it's a function component from React, and it should return null for now. Or actually, let's render something so we know we're landing to it. So contact add form. Let's just call it like that. Great. It's a named export, so I have to destructure it. So contact add form. It should be, oh, it's not auto import. All right, let's copy paste some of the components. So components slash contact form. Oh, okay, I didn't call it contact add form. I called it contact form. All right, so that's it. That should work. So I can see that the contact form is rendering. And if I go to John or Sally, that route doesn't get impacted. So this is working just fine. Let's head over to contact form. And before I start writing anything, let's reference Chakra's documentation. So I'll go to Firefox and go to Chakra Forms, Chakra UI form controls. And I believe there will be one that I can just copy paste. So I'll work with the first name example that they have. I'll copy paste it. And in the return, let's start with the parentheses, paste that in. With that pasted, let's just import the things that we're missing. So let's do label, input, save that. All right, so it's looking nice. I do want to change first name to just full name. And same here, placeholder will say full name. We do need another input for description, so let's copy paste as is. And remember, JSX needs a root element, so I'll just provide it a fragment and save that. So I have two full name fields. I'll name the second one description. Same thing here, description, save that. All right, perfect. And it says both of them are required. Is required here doesn't really mean much. We will be adding validation later, but is required in this case, we'll add a asterisk right beside it. So to reference that there is a required field, you have to provide this data. We do need a button to submit the form, and I will add that from Chakra. So submit button right so. Let's style it a little bit. So I'll use a color scheme. Oh, didn't want to do that. Color scheme of blue. And I think the size can be a large size. Save that, and that should make our button look much nicer. I don't like the spacing, so that will be another thing that Chakra has, something called a V-stack. Copy, paste. I think if I save it as is, it has a default gap. Perfect, so it's looking much nicer. I may just put another gap to say, give me number 2 gap, which is a little bit higher than number 1 or 0. And that's looking much nicer. All right, and let's make the width 100%. So it takes the whole space like so. And once that is done, I think we're pretty much ready to add the form in there. So I'll see you all in the next video.